Welcome, everyone. We're officially going to start this month's Focus Friday. These sessions are being recorded, so keep that in mind. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them anytime. There's a QA feature, and then there's also a chat feature. For questions, if you do it in the QA, then we'll get notifications just that somebody asked a question so we can get a chance to look at it. We do not get notifications if we're sharing our screen if you put something in the chat. All right, Renee, anything before we start?
No, good to go.
All righty, let me close out this session. Okay, today I'm going to start off and talk about master files, synonyms. So what are they? So let's just jump in. Generally, I jump ahead of myself, but I'm going to try not to this time.
Hey, Walter, are you recording?
The recording should have started automatically, did it not?
No, I didn't see it. Did it? Maybe you're seeing it on your end.
I'm looking. All right, let me stop sharing so I can check that.
Oh, now I see it recording. I see it recording now. It didn't show up at first. Okay, you're good.
All right, yeah, I see pause and stop, so it must be. All right, so master files. So you need a master file or a synonym if you're going to do a report against a file or a table or any source of data. The master file will map the data to WebFOCUS so that it knows how to read the file or get the data from a relational table. Some synonyms masters will have a corresponding access file. This is especially true if you're going against relational data sources. You can also have DBA information in the master file, which will control access to certain attributes or values or segments within your master synonym. So here's the top part of the car master. So we have file name equals car, suffix tells us what type of file it is. It's a FOC, so we know it's a FOCUS database. The data is broken out into different segments. So this is called a hierarchical data type or data structure. Origin is the top segment, and then comp is a child of origin, and then car rec is a child of comp. So you can see that based on the parent entries. And I said I was going to go ahead, but I already started to. So if you have just a simple fixed file, a sequential file, where I have one record, I have one column following another column. So in my data area, I have England is the first 10 characters, then Jaguar is the next 16, and then model is the next 24. So all this data should look pretty familiar. So the last one is going to be dealer cost. In order for FOCUS to be able to read it, I have to tell it, well, country is identified in the first 10 characters. That's identified by the A10. The first A10 is the usage. How am I using this field in FOCUS, in WebFOCUS? So I'm using it as an alpha 10 characters. The second value is the actual. This is how it's actually stored in the physical file. So the first physical 10 characters is going to be then read and be part of the country. And I just color coded it so you can see what goes into which column. Okay. So we're going to talk about some of the attributes. We're not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to show you the most common ones first, and then some that you might see, but then there's a whole bunch that you may never see. All right, so you got the file name, which we talked at the top, identifies the name of the master. Usually it's the same name as the synonym, doesn't have to be. The suffix is important because it tells you the data source. So if it's FOC, it's FOCUS, XFOC is XFOCUS, SQL Aura, Oracle. So whatever your adapter is, that would be, or the adapter engine, that would be what the suffix will be. Some other ones that you may or may not see, you could have an access file. So if you do have an access file used in this particular file, we will look for one if it's relational, But if it's a focused data source and you're doing something like smart partitioning that requires an access file, or MDI, which requires an access file, then you have to specify your access file in the synonym itself. Dataset lets you put in your dataset name or your file name, so you don't have to do a dynamic or a file def. Just by having the dataset in the synonym will take care of that for you. Then you can have like comments, remarks, a description. Description underscore LN, you can have different descriptions in different languages by specifying the description LN. And then that's all controlled by the set lang equals and then the 2-character language. And I want to say it's basically only for the 5 basic languages that we have. fdefcent is if you're doing date windowing. So you set the default century and then the year thresh. And then lastly, we have MFD profile, which is a procedure which gets run every time you access this particular synonym. So if you want to do some pre-processing every time you run it, you can do it using an MFD profile. And we'll see an example of that later. At the segment level, we have the seg name, the seg type. The seg name just gives a name to that grouping of fields. The seg type lets you know, is this keyed, what the order of the key fields are. The parent tells you if this is a child of a previous segment. And then you can have recurs, so you can have multiply occurring segments. You can also have a data set in a segment, especially if you're using a location. You can encrypt the segment, and this uses the, actually, I don't know what kind of encryption it uses, but it does do encryption. Location is if you're pointing to another focus or XFocus data source outside of where this data is being stored. And then position lets you identify a group or a chunk of data in a previous segment that you want to now redefine. So if I have 10 characters of the same field that occur 10 times, that's going to take up 100 characters. So in the main segment, I can say I have chunk for 100, and then I can create a segment saying the position is that chunk field, and it's only one field that's 10 characters, and it occurs 10 times. So now when I refer to that field, I'll see 10 lines of output. Okay, at the field level, we have the field name, which is obvious. The alias is just an alternative field name. Usually it's shorter. Sometimes the alias can be used for things like if you're doing VSAM, you want to identify your key, the alias would equal key. And if you're doing an accept, you can have your alias as your accept value for a rect type. Format is the same as usage. So it identifies the format or the usage of how WebFOCUS is going to use the field. So if the data coming in, let's say, is numeric and it's an I4, and you're going to be doing aggregation, you might want to use it as an I6, because when you add up all the values, you don't want to create an overflow. This used to be a real concern back in the day, but in the newer versions, we will adjust the width of the field if you do happen to come into an overflow setting. Again, this is all settable, so you could turn that off. So you could run into an overflow issue. Okay, other attributes. Again, we have description, we have help message, the field type. So if it's indexed, you'd have a field type equals I. Missing, is this field missable? So if it's a blank value, we'll treat it as a null, or if it's a 0, we'll treat it as a null if it's numeric. Let's see, and then we have the column title. So if you do the column title, when you create a report output, we'll use the column title, but then you can always override it using the as name. All right, so here's lots of other things that can be done. We have accept, description, groups, elements, location, map field. All of this is available. All of this is documented in the describing data manual. So I'm not going to go into too much details. other than to let you know that these things are here. You might see property equals internal. So that is a field in the master that will not show up in the client tools because it's an internal field and you don't want people just accessing them arbitrarily. You can also put computes, defines, and filters inside of the master. So it's kind of like Lord of the Rings, one master to rule them all. So looking at this simple master, we have file equals car. We've seen this before. Suffix equals focus database. Seg type equals S3. So the S3 tells me that it's a keyed file, and the first three fields in segment main are the keys. Country car model. What if I wanted to take those three fields and make them a group, which I can do also. So I can use group equals, and I call it country car model, alias CCM. It's an A50, and the actual is A50. So if I look at it, well, country is an A10, car is an A16, model is an A24, add them up, we get 50. So we run this and everybody should be happy. But what if I have different data types within my group? So I have country, which is an alpha, dealer cost, which is double precision, and retail cost, which is double precision. What do I put for my usage and my actual? Well, that's always been a question. So we're going to use an A26, and I know that that's correct. And how do I know that's correct, even though I have 6 and 6? You would think it would be 22. Well, alphas are stored based on the length that you have. So an A10 would have 10 characters or 10 bytes. And then D6, since it's double precision, we always store them with 8 bytes. So that's where 8 comes in. So we got 18. And then the second D6 is also 8 bytes, which gives us 26, or a total of 26. So now your head might be spinning a little right now because mine is too, and I think I understand all this. So what we decided to do is try to do something a little easier. So we put in a new feature called elements. So now you can do your group, and instead of knowing what the usage and actual is, you just say elements equals 3. So then what that does is takes the next 3 fields and says that those fields make up the group. And then you don't have to worry about any links. Woo! When you're working with masters, if you're creating your own, you might want to check and make sure that everything is syntactically correct. So we have a check file name. There are multiple options you can put with the check file. One that I didn't add here is check file name extended. The extended will also check your access file. So if I run check file car, oh, well, we'll give it a whole bunch. So this just explains all the different keywords. Picture gives you a nice little picture, and we'll see an example of that, kind of like the old ERDs, the entity relationship diagrams. Retrieve. So the logical picture that you see will probably be different from the retrieval picture because we retrieve information one segment at a time. So we're going to go segment 1, segment 2, segment 3. But the picture might have segment 1 and then segment 2 as a child of 1, and then segment 3 as a child of 1. So that's what you would see if you just do picture. But if you add retrieve, then you'll see the single path that we're taking to get to your data. Duplicate list duplicate fields. Hold will take the check file information and create a hold file out of it. That way you can do a check file car hold, and then you can report off of hold to get more detailed reporting of the fields. All right. All right, so check file employee. We get number of segments is 11, real is 6, virtual is 5, number of fields is 34, number of files is 3, and the total length of all fields is. Now, at the bottom of the employee master, we see these different segments. Seg name equals job seg type equals KU. The K means it's a cross-reference. The U means it's unique. So we're going against CR file, job file, and EJIC file. So we have the employee file, job file, EJIC file. So that's what makes up the 3 files. The segments, so you have the main segment in employee, and then you have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that gives you, that gives us the 5 virtual segments because they're cross-referenced. There's other things like pay history and all that that's also in the employee file. If you do the picture, this is what you see. So we have country, car is a child of country, model is a child of car, as is warranty and equipment. If you're running a report and you forget what your field names are, so you have some options. You have question mark, capital F, and then the file name. This will give you a list of the fields, and they're broken out by segment. So what's good about this is I can then copy this and put it into my table file query if I'm running my own code. We also have question mark FF file name, which gives you the field name, the alias, and the format. Hence the extra F. So you get the field and the format. This is good for, if you don't know what the formats are, but it's not so good if you want to copy and paste into a query. We also have a system table called syscolumn, just an M, no N at the end. For you relational people, you probably, or if you're especially DB2, you would have an sysibm.syscolumn with an N, which gives you information about the columns in your table. So we're using a similar principle, except we took the N off because we didn't want to be confused with the relational world. So table file syscolumn, print name, column type, length, scale, actual usage. And we tried to use similar names to what you would see in relational. And where TB name equals car. And I get a report showing country, the column type, the length, actual, and usage. Notice we have scale for the double precision that are format D6.1. All right, Eric asks, and where would you be typing them in to get that information returned and independent FEX? All right, so I spend most of my time on the reporting server, so I would do it through the reporting server console and create a new procedure. If you're using the client, you can do create new file and then identify it as a procedure, and then you can run it in there. And Renee, correct me if I got that all wrong.
You're good.
All right, good question. All right, so checking the master, so we can do a define file syscolumn. We can create an F type of an A10, and we're determining if the defined field in syscolumn is equal to a C, it identifies this entry as a compute definition. Else, if the define is a Y, then it's a define. So now I'm going to do table file syscolumn, print name def text, which is inside, it's a field in the sys column master. And then it's going to be by F type, where TB name equals car, where define equals C or Y. So here I have a compute percent cost, which is going to be dealer cost divided by retail cost. And I have a defined in this particular master for today's date, which is going to be a YYMD, which equals ampere YYMD, which is the system date for today. Okay. All right, so we have an issue where you have a master synonym that contains an ANV field, which is a variable type field, but you don't remember the name. How can you search through all your masters to find it? Well, you can use any of the techniques we use so far, the question mark FF, because you need to know the format. But if you just want to see all of the A and V fields, we can use syscolumn. And we're going to print TB name usage. So we're not looking at a particular synonym at this point. We're going to look through all of them. Where col type equals varchar, and in this case, where I'm just going to bring back the first 10 records. So here I get in my synonym ANV01, the field name is V, and it's an A10V, ANV car1, the field name is country, and it's an A10V, and etc. All right, and then lastly, we're going to talk about the MFD profile. So as I mentioned before, the MFD profile is something that you identify in the synonym to a procedure that's going to run before you access your data file. So in this case, my master is carmod, and it has an MFD profile pointing to carmod P, P for profile. And inside carmod P, I'm doing a couple dialog manager commands, and I'm doing a dynamic. In WebFOCUS, you would be doing a file def. So here I have dash set file name equals if amperfolk user equals Walter. So if I'm running this query, then I want to access file 1.data. Otherwise, I want to access file 2.data. Then I'm going to issue the dynamic or the file def, and then I'm going to run it. So when I run this, regardless of what the allocation is prior to me running it, when I run it, it's always going to be file 1. And when anybody else runs it, they're going to get file 2. I could have allocated it to file 3. Doesn't matter, because the MFD profile will run just before you access the data. So it will take precedence. You have to be careful when you're using MFD profile, because any reference to a synonym will trigger it. So if you're doing stuff, you might not want to do it more than one time in a session. So this is showing you a way where you can control, if you've already run this procedure, don't run it again. So here we're doing a dash default amper count it. So amper is a global variable. So it's going to be set to 0 if you never set it before. And then the first time through, it's going to get a value of 1 because we're going to increment it by 1. And then we're going to say if count it is greater than 2, because we already ran this one time, we're going to go to exit and not do the filter. And here we're going to set a filter, samp aura. The filter name is country, where this particular field, EDWAZ36 underscore ISO2 underscore country underscore C equals 10, end. And then we turn the filter on. So you only need to turn the filter on once. So that's why we're checking to make sure not to do it again. Sys column only shows info from master files and folders in the app path. Correct. Yes, that is correct. So the scope of what you see in sys column is what's available in your current app path. Okay, other areas in the master. We got DBA, we got business views, we got dimensional views, we have cluster masters. I am not going into any of those. Those are all documented, and they require their own sessions. So we don't have time to do it in this particular one. If there's any particular one you want to see more of, please identify it on the evaluation. All right, so Eric says, wouldn't the check being set to 2 mean that it runs twice before skipping? Yes, it's going. The MFD profile will always run every time you access the synonym. The question is, do you want the code in the MFD profile to get skipped if it's not the first time? So that's a good clarification there. You will always run the MFD profile, but we just want to make sure that you only run particular code just once. And that's why we're skipping around it and going to exit. Good questions. Any other questions? All right, I will stop sharing. And Renee, take it away.
Okay, just give me one moment. share. Close things down. Okay. All right. All right. So you should be able to see my screen.
Yes.
Looks good. Well, perfect. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. Really appreciate it. I know your time is valuable. This is a continuation to the last 2 months prior. We did an introduction to assemble visualizations, creating pages within with WebFOCUS Designer using existing content. And so today is going to be our final closeout of that introduction. And I'm definitely going to do a review. Certainly go back and take a look at the first 2 sessions from July and August as follow-up. But I'm going to do a little review today just in case you didn't get to attend those sessions and just to level set for today's discussion and follow-up. So the very first thing we're going to do, oh, by the way, if there's any questions, if you could put them in chat and I'll try to address those at the very end, just because, as you well know, I always tend to run short on time. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new assemble visualization. I am running in 9.3 WebFOCUS. By default, I'm going to pick a blank template, but certainly you can pick as appropriate other options that are available or create your own custom one. We show you how to do that. You can click the link to review it. Come in as a blank template, and the very first thing I'm going to do, and again, this is things that were viewed in the first 2 sessions. I'm going to go to content, and I'll navigate to where I have the content that I want to add to this page. And so I'm going to add, let's see, category sales. I'm just double clicking in. You can see the filters already, the little purple icon saying this filter is available. But let me add the other content in as well on, let's see, revenue by month and category. I'll do average cost versus revenue scatter, and then we'll do revenue product bar. And that's the very first thing we did. We set up, and then we went to filters. And certainly you can right click and add these individually and add them to the page as the appropriate, based on that type of parameter, what could be added in, or you can convert it afterwards. For date though, you can only do add to page, right? Because it's a date control. I'm going to add everything. And notice, by the way, category and product model are automatically bound together as a hierarchy within the synonym for WF Retail Lite. This is a reporting object for WF Retail Lite. I'm going to add all the filters to the page, and you can see that they were added to the page, and they're all bordered because they were all added at one time. Certainly, I can click those, right-click contextually. There's options. I can convert them as appropriate if I wanted to, and I'll get the appropriate options. Certainly, I can also, we discussed, I can combine these 2 dates by shift right-clicking and selecting combine. And if I wanted to, outline is definitely something you can always go to for reference if you're unsure of where you need to go. Outline, it'll be available to you, and I can actually right-click here and edit the title if I want. So I'll call this like from to, right? Just as something, and then maybe for the styling here, I could go to the filter bar here if I wanted to, and then format, and maybe I want 3 columns to go across, or I could have additional styling if I want default styling for here. That's another option available. I'm going to go to the page. Remember, we talked about the page heading and retail demo page, and select that in. And certainly, I have capabilities. If you want to talk about styling, what's available, a great way to figure that out is to utilize the outline. When you're at the page level, you have the theme that's available to you. There's the 4 default ones that we have that are available with the product, and you can see I have some additional ones here. If I pick that designer 2018 page color pink, you'll see the background on the charts change. And just to show you from the hub perspective, you can go to global resources. You can see under the themes, you can see the standard. There's the 4 that are included in the product. And then you can see the custom ones that I have available. I can like just pull this out a little bit just so that you can see the names or what I saw within the tool itself. So just to show you where that was. And all I did was basically create that folder in the custom folder, copy the designer 2018 themes files. There's a style and a CSS file. Copied it into that new folder and then adjusted page color. And I did that for report and chart. So I'm not going to leave it that way, but I just wanted to showcase that as an option. This is a review and not something really discussed the last time, but I know styling is definitely an important topic that comes up into support all the time. So, okay, that's at the page level. And then if you wanted to look at styling, like I said, we have here, you can look at the cells, but they're individual. It's more about alignment. You could certainly style the sections. So if I wanted to do something, I could pick here and you could see the background, change color. I'll come back to the default for that. If I'm at a container level, certainly I have that ability. And if I pick it here, you can see it impacts the styling there for the actual container. Remember the content I changed with the theme. But if I did pick the actual content within the container, you can inherit the page theme, or you can change and use the content theme or adjust accordingly. So that's also options that are available to you in terms of styling. So coming back to what we did, okay, so at the page level, I changed the heading, I've added the filters, I have the first section here, kind of formatted the way I want it, and just this container I'll put back to the default styling. So I'm in section 1, and I can click here, and wherever I have the blue border, remember that's where you're focused on, or I can go to the outline and select accordingly. So while in section 1, I can right-click in there, and I can create another section. I want to insert a section below. Then you'll see here below here I have another section, and I can add some additional content to this section that I've added. And what I did the last time was I added the revenue region bar to that second section. I'll expand this out. And if you're unsure where it went, right, you can see it here. It's in section 2. And then you can see the focus I have here is section 1. Let me just come back to settings there so you can see that. So I want to make this a multi-content. That's what I did the last time. So let me come back to content, and I'll add discount by region. And if I just put it on top of it, it'll tell me, do I want to replace it? Do I want to add this as a new tab? And then there's a drop down where I can make it a new slide or an according area. But, you know, I'll just say add as a new tab. And now I can see I have discount by region as a new tab there. Something you might want to do is maybe uncheck the show title. Maybe if you don't want the items here, I can uncheck that as well, but I'll leave it just for reference. So now in my outline, I can see that I have 2 sections, right, with 4 pieces of content in the first one, and then multi-content container with 2 pieces of content in that second section. Okay, so that was pretty quick, right? And this is a review of what we've already done, and I'm not even finished with what we reviewed in the last 2 sessions. So let me just up here a little bit. So what we did next is we started with some interactions, and that was near the end of the second session where we left off the last time. So the first thing we did was, how do you add an interaction? Well, I could add an interaction by clicking the interaction button here if I want to. But a nice way and contextually saves you a few clicks is where you want to create the interaction on. You could right click, right? And you could select interaction, and because I don't have one, there's only add as an option. If I had an interaction already there, you could have edit and add both. So I'm going to add, and it brings up the interaction menu for me automatically and tells me, all right, the advanced option that's available for this is the only thing is a selection change. So I click OK. So what did I want to do with region? Well, what I wanted to do is, if the region was all, I wanted to display that second section on the page. But otherwise, I want to hide it. So if it's any other region value other than all, I want to hide it. So I need to create some tasks when the selection changes. And the first task, if I click it, what I want to do is I want to hide the object. And what do I want to hide? I can click that. And if there's something that you can hide, it'll let you know, and you can have OK. But here I just want to hide section 2. I could have picked a container, but I still have that section. And I could also make it collapsible if I wanted, but here I want to hide the whole section. I'm going to hide that, and I'll click OK. Now, all I did was create that task. I really haven't done much with it yet. I haven't said when to hide it, but I want another task, and this time I want that task to show that object. What do I want to show? Section 2. Okay, so now I have 2 tasks. That's great, but when do I want to hide it, and when do I want to show it? Well, if I right-click on the task, One, I can add a condition. And the condition I could say is, well, for region, that's the control I'm looking at, when it's not equal to one of and really all, then when it's not equal to all, I want to hide it. And then for showing it, I'm going to do the same thing, region, and when it equals, and I'll select all, and I could see that. And the one of is if you had multiple options here and you're selecting multiple values, of course, but it's just one anyway, and it's all, so it doesn't matter whether it's one of or, that it doesn't matter for that. So I'm going to click OK. So now I have two conditions. So I'm hiding it when it's not equal to all, and then I'm supposed to show it when it does equal all. And a good habit, best practice, is you can double click into the interaction name at the top, because you'll get the names defaulting to interaction 1, interaction 2. I'm going to change this and call it region interaction. This is a best practice. So now I have this, and I want to just run this so that you can see that page. We have our heading, there's our filters being displayed, there's our content, and you're all going to get that second session by default. Doesn't matter what this is, because that interaction only takes place at a selection change. By the way, we are looking into enhancing to allow you to create interactions that are enabled at page initial load, which is, I know, very valuable. There's certain things you can do in custom JavaScript, but having that available within the tool to make that process easier is a great idea. So something for the future. Okay, I have all. I have it listed. I could see all the content here. Now let me change it just to North America. And I can see now, while we're waiting for the rest of the page to load, that that's already hidden now, that's section 2. And I certainly can wait for this to load. Just give it a second. And then if I decide to, I could pick another one, but if I come back to all, you can see now I'm getting that section 2 content displayed. A really nice and easy way to be able to control your page and content that might be available to you just by utilizing sections. Okay, and that's a simple interaction just to show and hide. So that's something it's review, but it's helpful because interactions are definitely important. So I'm going to close that out. Okay, so what else did we do? Well, the other thing that we did, and this is close to where we left off, is we created, via controls, we added an unbound content. So by default, it'll say drop down 1. I drag the drop down control over, and you can see it has no values and there's nothing associated with it. When I have the focus on this filter that I've added, you can see source. There's no source, but I can certainly edit. And if I do that, I can pick static or I can pick dynamic. I'm going to show dynamic in a little bit of a different way in a short while. So what I did was I added a static list. And I did like a value, but the actual display, I'll say average cost versus sales. And then I'll add another row, RT, and this is the regional sales trend. Okay, and this is where we left off close to it. We were able to create this part. And now I can see the static list has 2 values. I certainly can come back in and edit it, and we'll see that again in a short while. And then the drop down here also has the values here that I just added to the list, but they're not doing anything. If I would have run this, it's not going to do anything. I didn't tell it what to do. It's just a drop down list of values. By the way, if I wanted to go to the outline, I could edit this tile, the title for this, and just say, maybe probably not what I did the last time, but you'll get the idea, content selection. Okay. So what I really need to do is, now that I have this drop-down that I created, and the goal of this was to be able to run additional content and just replace content that's on the page, particularly this revenue by month and category container, I can right-click and interaction, and I can add. So I'm going to add an interaction on that control, which again, it'll be selection changes the event. That's the only option. And what do I want to do? I want to run content. And what content do I want to run? Well, I got to go and select it. So I'll go and navigate to that, and I'll select average cost be sales. And where do I want to place that? I'm going to place this for a container. and what container. Now, it'll let you know by OK here that, all right, I'm at the container level, but I want to be at the content level with the container to replace it. So I did that, and now you can see it's available, and you can see the blue border telling you where your focus is at, and you can also see the outline here of where I'm focused at, and I'm going to click OK. So now I have one task here associated with this interaction on content selection, so this drop-down, where if I run average cost B sales, and I'm going to replace this container. I haven't told it when to do that yet, right? I want to add another task, and I'm going to say the same thing, run content. This time I'm going to select a different piece of content, and I'm going to pick the regional sales trend this time, so that second static list in the drop-down that I added, the container, and then what do I want to pick? I'm going to pick the same container, revenue by month and category. Okay, now I have two tasks that are associated with this as an interaction, but I haven't directly associated with them with the values yet. And the way I'm going to do that again is through an add condition. And I'm going to say for the content selection filter that I'm on, when it equals the average cost B sales, that's when this task will be run. And then I'll add the condition for the second one, content selection, and here I'll pick the regional sales trend and add that over. Added. Now that has a condition. So now I added my drop down. I created the static list when I was focused on this. And then I created an interaction with two different tasks to run different content to replace the content within this container for revenue by month and category, and the conditions point to the values that I associated with that drop down. Of course, again, as a best practice, and we'll call this interaction content interaction, just something like that. And then I'll run it. Let's see where we're at. Again, our filters, our page loads. We have the second section loading up too. And now I'm going to change, and I'm going to say, okay, average cost B sales. And you can see right away that that replaced the content in the revenue by month and category, and then regional sales trends. And that replaced the content there. Pretty straightforward. Now, what if I wanted to have the content that was there come back? And this is right now is where we left off from the last two sessions, right? So I'm going to close this out. And of course, I could come back and I can add another task. But before I do that, I really need to update the static list with another value to select. I'm going to edit. You can see I could just add something as that, and I'll put this as a revenue by month and category. And so now I can see that I have three values there. You can see the static list says there's three values, and now I need to add a task. So what I'm going to do, and this should be pretty familiar to you now, and let's see, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick my revenue by month and category. And I'm going to, container is the target, and it's the container where it would originally loaded when I initially load the page. I'm going to pick that. So now I haven't completed my task yet, right? The task is done, but I still have to add the conditions so that when I go to this control and I select now, I can see I have revenue by month and category as an option to select. Now I've added my condition. So certainly now I can run this again. And I'll let it load. References there. And looks good. And then, of course, I could say average cost B sales. That's still working as anticipated. And then the regional sales trends load up. And that's consistent with what we just tested before we added coming back to revenue the month and category. And I'll let that finish loading just so that you can see it loads properly. And then now I can go by revenue by month and category. And of course, I can go back to other content as well. Okay. So there's more interactions I want to showcase, but there's some other interesting stuff I want to show. So I'm going to close that out for the moment. And I'm going to come over to category. And category, right, you have a lot of information, right, on the settings. There's the format, so the label position and everything. But on the settings side, you have general settings. You can see it's multiple select. There's the filter panel. Here's the filter control, right? So you can see the classes that you can add. So if you're in the cell, right, you'll see here your filter cell. But if you're on the actual filter, you'll see filter panel, right, with the ID appropriate to it. Classes is important. You'll see that's very, very necessary for JavaScript, tooltip, global name. We talked about all of that in the prior sessions. Global name, if you're putting this in a portal across pages and you want them to influence the same parameter across another page, use the same global name. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but a very important aspect, obviously, remember assemble page. If you want to change the default value, if you do it here, this is just in preview. At runtime, it won't impact it. You need to change the default value here. And what's nice in 9.3 is you actually have the edit option, right, where you can come and select the values, etc., or pick global parameter instead of just typing it in.
Renee?
So I'm going to, yeah.
There's a question. Is there a way to specify a default value so that the content selection control you added doesn't load as no values?
And yes, you beat me to it. I was going to come back to that a little later, but it's a good point. It's a question that does come up. Right now, there is no option. When it loads, there's no values. You have to select something to see it. But there is a feature request to enhance that so that it actually, that you would be able to set a default value for an unbound control, such as the dropdown I created. But it's a great question. Definitely not the first time that we've heard that, and it's definitely an enhancement. If you're really interested in that too, definitely fill out the survey and mention it, or certainly open up a case, because the more interest that we have in the features, the more likely that they will obviously be implemented and everything. But that's definitely one that I see that will be done, and it is in with product management. Okay, great question. Okay. If there's no other questions, then so category. So I'm going through all of that. You can see product cat. This is the actual name of the info variable. And remember, I haven't showed my lovely info button that I love to show. If you don't remember it, shows you where the reference content is coming from, the data source, and also the parameter. You can see where, because remember, you might have you might be bringing multiple content on the page, but maybe not all of that content. While it happens in this case, every content that I'm adding has all the same parameters. If they don't, so that, you know, the content is only impacted by the parameters that are available to it. So just to be aware of. So here I have, and I'll put back the info just so you can see the content, but product category is the parameter. What's a great option is here there's bindings. Here, by the way, you can see the targets that I just showed you in info, but they're listed in alphabetical order. You can add another target through that way. But I want to talk about source. Because remember, source was just what we saw with the uncontrolled, right? Here, come back to the unbound control, right? And we created that static list. Here with category, right, which is a filter that was added, the source is the synonym that's associated with it. But I can edit this if I want. And I could certainly create a static list if I want. Probably not likely in this case for a parameter that was added in based in content. But what I might want is dynamic. And I could do from data or for procedure. Now, I'm going to just cancel out for a moment, right? Because just to refresh your memory, right, get them in default ascending order category. What if I wanted in descending order? Can I accomplish that? Absolutely. So how can I accomplish that? So I can go into the binding source for that control. And instead of static or leaving it to default, I can go to dynamic. And I can say from data in this case. And I'll select the data source. And I'm going to go to retail samples and WF retail light. And then I have to select a value and a display. And in this case, it's going to both be product category. So I'm going to just type prod so I can get product category to display. And I'll do that again and select appropriately. But they're both the same value, but they could be different. And you can say whether you want to sort by the value or display. And here I'm going to change the sort order to descending. I want to enable sorting. And I'm going to say OK. And now you can see that it did update, and look, you can see it's in descending order, a really quick and easy way. If you've ever run across that way, that's a requirement. And just to showcase that, if you run it, Absolutely. You can see it's in descending order. And I won't wait for the page to load everything else, but you get the idea. You can see it works at runtime as well. Well, what if I wanted to change this a little bit? I have the ability to say from procedure. I'm going to select that. Now, I'm not showing you the code yet, deliberately, but I'm going to navigate. I will show it to you, don't worry. I won't leave you hanging. And I'm going to navigate to this FOCLOG that I created called Retail PCAT Unique Sort. And I'm going to open that. And then based on its parsing of that, both product category, these both are identical fields, so it doesn't matter, but I have to say value and display. And notice this is grayed out because you're doing it from procedure. It's assuming that you're controlling what you're doing. So the enabled sorting default that you saw when it was from data is not available. And I'm going to click OK on that. And now, when I click category, you're going to see television, camcorder. Wow, that's not ascending, nor is it descending. I created my own unique sort order. And just to prove it, at runtime, you can certainly see the impact at runtime as well. And of course, if I do selections that, accessory, computers, let's just pick something. Of course, it does apply, it does work. I'm not just showcasing it, right? So I just want to showcase that you can see accessories and computers is picked up. Okay, so what did I do with that procedure? So let me just go and show you that procedure, retail model sort within PCAT. I'm going to edit. And because I know it's probably a little bit small, let me see if I put that up a little bit so that you can see. And all I did was create XML output. I tabled the retail, WF Retail Lite. And I did some, and I put it as, oh, I'm sorry. I'm showing you the wrong one. Oh, I'm getting ahead. Sorry. Come back here. Okay, let's do that one. All right. Sorry. I showed you something else. I'm going to show you that in a minute anyway. So, okay. So PCAT Unique Sort here, I did. I did do WF Retail Lite. I did Format XML. I did Hold List Print Only. But notice, okay, I'm summing on P category. I have by P category, but it's not the high order sort field. What the high order sort field is by PCAT_sort, which I know printed. Notice it didn't come up on the list. And then I had this define field here, right? That's actually doing a decode on product category, and I'm creating my own sort order with television 1, and remember media player was 7. So you can kind of see I created my own sort order. Now I know this might not be something that you might need often, but if that's a requirement or if you have some unique circumstances, being aware that the capability is there, I think it's half the battle, right? Knowing that you have that capability and have it in your back pocket is important. So you can easily do descending order or something like that and just point to the synonym like I showed you. Or you can create your own little FOCLOG deck with XML output and create your own sort order. So let me come back here and let me just reduce the size a little bit just so we could see more on what's on the page. So I'm going to come back and I'm just going to change this and I'm just going to come back to the default. So it'll just do what it was doing before, which was in descending order, but I wanted to showcase that. But let me show you another different sample, which I kind of already showcased the FOCLOG deck a little bit ahead of time, but product model. So product model is just a list of pages 1 through 7 in alphabetical order, right, ascending order. What if I wanted to, because product model is bound within category, I wanted the product model sorted in the order of, ascending order product category. Can I accomplish that? Absolutely. So what I'm going to do here is, now that I'm in product model, I'm going to come here to the bindings. And what I'll do is I'll say dynamic, and I'm going to say from procedure, and I'm going to select the procedure that you saw me pick up ahead of time. And I'm going to say retail model sort within PCAT. And then I just have to sort the value here, model sort, but they're really the same, so it really doesn't matter. But model display, if you hover again, that's disabled. And now you can see that I have the accessories, and then you can see now it's changing to camcorder values, if you know the data. And I'll just go to the top of the next page just so you can see that finish, and then you can see computers. So just to show that this is actually working, here now I'm going to pick accessories and computers. And now you can see here the drop down. I can see the accessories, and then right here to computers, bypassing, right? So it's nice. Again, might not necessarily need it, but, and just to prove that it works, right? If I pick just that product model, then I should see these updates to just computers, just to showcase it. So let me show that code. I'm just going to come back and, you know, pick all here. But let me come back to that code, because that's really the key part of this. And let me edit. And I'm going to, oh, went the wrong way. Here we go. All right. So I started showing this, right? I'm doing a high order on product category with model as the secondary sort. So it's in ascending order of product category. And then notice here I have selection for product category. I need to pass that in. And as long as this AMPA variable matches the filter that I have on the page for product category, it's going to apply, which you saw that it did, and that actually did work. Again, I still have my XML, et cetera, as an exon, you know, but I want to showcase now. Let me just change this, and let me just come back to size. I'm going to come back to product model, and I'm just going to come in and change this again to the binding, because I want to showcase a different FOC exec where I made a slight difference. So I'm going to come in, and I'm going to pick with a different variable name in this case, or not having the variable name at all. And I'm going to pick that, and then I'll just pick models again, and I'll click OK. And now you'll see I get pages 1 through 7, but now if I pick like accessories and computers, you'll see I'm still getting all the values. So why is that? So let me go into the FOC exec and show it to you for your reference. And let's increase it for visibility. And you can see here, what I did was I changed the AMPA variable name to product underscore to category X. And here's the reference as well. It's the only change I made. So if I didn't reference this variable at all and I just created it without the where clause on product category, and in this case, I happen to have the AMPA variable doesn't match what's on the page, it's not going to get applied and you're just going to get the list. So just something to think about and to be aware of. Okay. So let me just reduce that back size-wise. So I'm just going to reset that, but I really wanted to showcase that. It's a very cool feature not enough people are aware of, that gives you a little bit more control that you might need in certain cases. So both of these back now are back to the default bindings. You can see, just come back here, and I'm just going to say all. So with the last few minutes I have left, just to showcase just a little bit more interactions. Here, interactions, I'm on the container that I'm focused on, and if I right-click, I can interaction, I can add, and here I click. And what do I want to do? I want to run some content, and what content do I want to run? Let me go to, let's see, store, region, report, and where do I want to do it? I'm going to do a page overlay. Notice as soon as I did this, the title bar is now linkable. You can't do it here in preview. And let me just actually, for good practice, let me just fix the interaction and call this, let's say, I don't know, reach prod bar interaction. But here, I'll just run this real quick. And now you can see that it's clickable. And if I, rather than wait, I'm just going to click it. You can see I get the page overlay, and you'll see the store region report display. And I did. And then I can close that out if I want. And of course, I could do that again. And then, of course, it doesn't have to be a page overlay. I could change it and say, maybe I want a new window or container and everything. But I'll just do a new window just to showcase it real quick. And now you can see if I click it, I'll get the store region report separately. Let that finish running just so that you can see it. That's a really easy way. Now, of course, if I had content that I wanted to be linkable within the content, then that's when you deal with drill downs, right? And create links that way within your content itself. But here you can have a linkable title. Really, you're linking the content, the container, very easily and straightforward. And the last thing I wanted to showcase in the last few minutes is a quick thing with JavaScript. So here I want to go to the content interaction, and remember I have my drop down that I created. I'm going to add another task, and scrolling down I have the ability to execute JavaScript function. And so what I wanted to showcase is that starting in 9.2, we kind of gave you this capability, right, where we had the ability now to embed the JavaScript API calls with this option, the execute JavaScript function. And the JavaScript editor, which I'll showcase in a moment, provides like fundamental error checking, right? So in the past, there was no like validation taking place, right? It was only while running. So this is a better approach where we can at least do some, fundamental error checking on the JavaScript. So making, development a little bit easier and, less error prone. So I'm just going to say execute JavaScript. I'm going to pick, and I'm going to say okay. And then I can click add JavaScript function. And I haven't created this yet, but I'm going to say my test, open close paren, and semicolon. Now I can see I've got that task, and if I wanted to, I can actually put this up and scroll up, and I can move tasks, by the way, and you can right click and you can disable, add condition, delete as appropriate. But notice I'm not putting a condition on that. I want this to be executed every time. And now in the outline, I can go to the bottom and select JavaScript. And I'm just going to start typing here, and you can see already it's giving you information, with typing ahead what you might be typing. And I'm just going to go and just say my function, which I called my test. I'm going to deliberately skip over the open close parenthesis and just put the curly bracket in and hit enter. It's smart enough to give the closing bracket, but it's also letting me know with the little red X's here that it's looking for parentheses that I didn't supply. Now, I'm not going to supply that yet. I'll leave it there, but I'm just going to type an alert. This is a JS function, okay, something simple. And now, of course, it's still, if I hover over, it's still letting me know there's an error. I'll put it in there just so that you can see that it gets rid of that. And then it lets me know informationally I'm missing a semicolon. I'll add that in. You can see the collapsible little icons above and below, the function to collapse and expand appropriately. Now, if I take out the parentheses, I just want to showcase it, right? I still get the first error message and then there's 3 more. If I try to X out of the JavaScript editor, it lets me know there's a warning that there are 4 errors. Do I still want to close the editor? I can certainly cancel, fix it. But if I decide to say close the editor, when you come back into the outline with JavaScript, there's a warning icon letting you know that there are JavaScript errors in the editor. So we really tried to think of and try to be proactive in the error checking. I mean, obviously, it can't test everything, right? It's not testing functionality necessarily. It's just a parsing execution. But I'll put the parenthesis there. I'll close it out, barring anything unforeseen. Type-wise on my part, I'll just quickly go through. And now if I do average cost sales, you see I get the alert. And then you can see it's going to change the container. I'll just go through. Here's the alert again. Regional sales trend is going to change. And then revenue by month, and I'm getting the alert again. And of course, if I keep going through, it's going to keep giving the alert. But you get the idea. It certainly function as appropriate. And then with this last few minutes, I wanted to showcase with a little bit more complex JavaScript. And the goal of this is not to go into the JavaScript details. But starting in 9.1 under server, home, Etsy, IBX tools, automation, samples, there's a selection.js page. And the code that I have here is very close to it. I just scaled it down a little bit from the options that are in the menu. But we're going to use classes. So that category sales container, I need to have a class of cat-sales. And I'm going to create a little menu button. That's what this sample is from product management engineering created. That is available in the product, again, from 9.1 and up. And then it's going to create this little button on that container with the text of options and a little plus and everything, and then this on-click And here it goes through and creates it. And then it gives these options where I could set the category. I can do for category media player and televisions, and this is the text that you'll see. You can go through, and the same thing for category to all, and I did region to North America. There was some others there, but I pulled those out. And then there's the utility functions that get called here. So just because we're short on time, I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to come back into the JavaScript. And I'm just going to add it to the end. Probably should make this as part of the page up, but just for expediency, I'm just going to copy and paste that right in. I'm going to close that out. Now, right now, that's not going to work, that code, because I still have to change and set the appropriate classes. So for my category filter, I have to have category. I'm on the filter panel, right? And then for region, I'm going to add region. And then also I need one last one for category sales, and this is cat-sales. And just to make sure that I have them there and they're appropriately set, I see region and I see category sales. Okay, let me run. And you'll notice now the category sales container has a plus sign. There's the text options. I can click it, and it gives me this little list, and that's the list that you saw created. And if I set region to North America, and just before I do that, let me just showcase, right, I'm getting the section down here. But if I set it to North America, you see the filter up here was adjusted, but notice that this is still displaying the section 2. And why? Because my interaction was a selection change on this filter here, not with this. So it's something we can address quickly. Just to showcase here, I could pick category to media player and television, and you can see it updates accordingly. And of course, if I still make my changes here, like if I pick the MIA, now you can see that container, that section is still hidden, so that still works. And if I came back and selected all, you can see that you're still seeing that. It's just here, it's not having the impact that I would want. So I'll make one last change. And what I need to do in order to do that is to come to section 2, and I need a class here for section 2. I'm going to say section 2. That's going to be my class name. And then in the JavaScript, I already set up, and I'll just comment out this code for that section. And I'll uncomment. So originally it was just doing region and setting North America, but now I'm also adding this other command to hide section 2 class. And I put the little curly brackets there too, by the way, for your reference. So, but I need that class there to say hide it. And you can do hide to hide filters and sections. Now containers are a little bit different, so you can't use that for that purpose, but it's kind of little cool JavaScript to be able to do something quick that you need within custom JavaScript. So now, and I do have section 2, if I run this real quick, this is the last thing, promise. Now, and I do still see section 2 there. Here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do select section North America region. It did update, but now you can see it's hidden. And of course, if I come here, all, I can change it. It certainly displays. And then I can come back here and I can select it again, and then it's hidden. So I have the impact that I want. So I know I showcased a lot of information. There's even more. I could have created a button on this page, and I could have created an interaction on the button to run content. One thing to be aware of when you run content, it's not applying the filters. That would require custom JavaScript. If you do run content and you replace a container on the page, and that content that is replaced, any filter changes, if those filters are within that content, applicable to that content, then it will have an impact afterwards as well. So I know I demonstrated a lot of content in these sessions. Certainly we can have follow-up. If there's other things that you're interested in, please fill out an evaluation, let us know. But I suspect a little bit more custom JavaScript down the road would be called for. So thank you for your time and for giving me this extra time to review this. So I'll stop sharing at this point and see if there's any questions.
It was a good segue because Josh is asking, is there documentation for available JavaScript?
There is documentation on JavaScript with the different some classes and everything, but it's not going to spell out how to create everything that you would require. But there is, if you, I believe in the user manual and online. I can get back on that. And was that it? The question?
That's it.
Okay. Again, fill out the evaluations, guys. Please let us know. Oh,
nope.
This one.
What? Yeah, one just popped in.
Is there a way to change the default message for disabling the initial page load? So there is an option. What that's referencing is when you're at the page, for the different options, there's one about initial page load. And right now that message is not, there's no default. But if there's something you're interested in, if you could add it to the evaluation, I can let product management know as well that there's some interest in that. That's the first time I've heard that one, but I can understand where that might be a great idea. And let's see. On the example in which the XML formatted procedure, can you explain again why you need the where clause with the ampervar within that procedure? Well, the reason why you need it in that procedure specifically is because, one, we're also controlling that filter based on another sort field, and those filters are bound together. There's a hierarchy, right? There's binding taking place. So product category is a higher bound chain filter to that model filter. Actually, there's subcategory in between, but that's not a filter. That's part of this page or the content. So you saw when I did it, when I changed the amper variable name, or if I didn't have that amper variable at all, what you'll just get, because we're saying the procedure is going to overtake how that filter is loaded, then it doesn't matter what product category has. It's always just going to load all the filter values. So it's really crucial to have product category there as the selection. Otherwise, you're going to get all 1 through 7 pages of the models. And yes, they'll be in sort order, and maybe you want that, but you know, that's something necessary. And then, so I think Jacob said, so this is part of Designer replaces HTML Composer right from App Studio. Yes, really, we are trying to close all of the gaps, and in addition, give you more functionality in areas. So again, if it's something that you see that you will want to enhance, please reach out via a case or through definitely evaluations. I always go back to product management with the feedback that I get from these sessions. So it's important. The whole point is to enable you and to enable everyone to get the most out of the product, to hit the ground running, and that's what these sessions are. So I think that's it for me, question-wise.
Okay.
And back to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you. Thank you.
Oh, wait, one more. Question on the enhancement process. Has there been any consideration in having a method outside of support to submitting just straight up enhancement requests?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know about you, but if, again, opening up a case, showing interest, and or at least letting me know through the evaluations, believe me, those are taken very seriously, and I certainly do go back and circle back on that. So,
and also,
nice, so I can
also through the community, they should be able to put suggestions, no?
Absolutely, absolutely. Going out on voting on things, that would be nice.
We're going back to the old TCC. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that concludes the WebFOCUS, the part of the session. We're going to jump into Mainframe, and today Mainframe Focus specific. So if you're not using Mainframe Focus, I'm going to talk specifically about the FOCLOG product. You're free to go, but please remember to fill out your evaluations. Like and subscribe. Wrong channel, right? Actually, I say like a wrong channel, but once our videos are done, they do go out on YouTube. So there's a question before that you guys didn't see. Where can you find past recordings? We are on YouTube. And the easiest way is to do a search in YouTube on IBI Focus Fridays, and then you should see all of our sessions. Thanks, Eric. All right. So again, if you're not mainframe, you're probably not going to be interested or understand or so you're welcome to go. You're welcome to stay too. It's up to you. Always glad to have the extra people. And I'm just going to start jumping in here. Let's see, share my screen. Share. Okay, so I am going to talk about FOCLOG. If you received new keys, you probably got a package that had key information. It might have had some JCL for you to run. And it had something called a focexec.xmit and a master.xmit and a FOCLOG PDF. We've gotten a lot of feedback that PDF was unreadable, so I have since replaced it. So if you do need a new one, let me know. I'll open a case and I'll send you the current one. But you might be getting this and saying, well, what is FOCLOG? Some of you know, okay, well, you have to do quarterly reporting, yearly reporting, some type of repetitive reporting based on your usage. So we're just going to do a session on what is it. And it's just an overview. I don't go into the details on all the reports. I will show you some of them. We have time. But basically, it's just an overview of what you get. So what is FOCLOG? It's a tool for recording and analyzing the use of focus for your entire site. Basically, it gathers information on your focus sessions and basic things that were done within the session. If you created a hold file, we know that you did that. If you created a hold file to DB2, we know that. So there's a lot of good information in there about how you're using it. We also check to see if you're using focus in batch or interactively, and also if you're running via MSO. All right, so is FOCLOG in your version? So that's a good start. So FOCLOG is shipped as part of the IBI Focus version 7.6.1 and higher. You install, you have it. It's not turned on, but you have it. Earlier versions don't have it. You have to install it. When you get your license package, we will send you everything you need to install it. So the JCL that we send you and all the files, all you need to do is run the JCL. So you run the JCL, you replace your license file, boom, boom, you're done. You have your new license, and now you have FOCLOG available to you. Again, it was just added as part of the product, not turned on yet. All right, that we already said. All right, so for 7.6 and higher, you have to turn on FOCLOG by issuing the command set FOCLOG equals on. So that needs to be set either in FOCPARM or FOCPROF. Why would you put it there? Because when you start Focus, these members are part of the system install files. So you want to make sure that they're always run and active for everybody. Let's see. You also need to have a member in your errors DD allocation called focus log. This member will contain the name of your collection dataset. This collection dataset must be writable by anybody that's running Focus because we're going to put the information for their session in there. Okay, how to implement it. The person implementing should be a system administrator because they have to create the files and also assign the RACF rules to make sure that all your Focus users can write to it. All of the files necessary for either adding it to your environment, FOCEXECs and masters for reporting, again, are all part of your new license package. And the administrator just needs to set the FOCLOG on in FOCPARM or FOCPROF, create the focus log file, which is just a member in errors.data. Or if you're in the newer versions in 7.7.03 or higher, it could be in your conf.cfg or conf.prf. And then physically create the file that he mentions in the focus log member, again, with all the proper privileges for read-write. All right. So required monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever your requirement is. As of 9/15, a new JCL member is being provided as part of the FOCExec.data that we ship with the new licenses. And it's called JCL 4X9. So originally the report was FLRPT 409, and then it was modified for this requirement, and it was called FLRPT 4X9. So I'm kind of keeping that convention, and I just called it JCL 4X9. So again, it's a replacement of the FLRPT 4X9, and it's all inclusive. Standalone. You don't have to have anything else from any of the other FOCLOG files. All you need to do is add an appropriate job card, set the variables at the top of the JCL, submit the job, and then FTP the file to your PC, and then open a case with the subject FOCLOG reporting, and then it'd be good if you put the begin date and end date. And then upload the output file from the job to the case. All right, so here are the sets. And these are explaining what they are. So FOCLib is your production FOCLib.load. UserLib is FuseLib.load. Errors is errors.data. FOCLog is your collection data set. FLOut is the name of the file the output file that you're going to send to us. And then your from date and to date. Okay, notes. The FOCLog collection data set must be writable by all persons. I think I said that several times. Hopefully it sunk in. FOCLog will store session information in memory and only write to the collection data set when the focus session ends. So why do I mention that? I mention it because if a user is active in focus and their 3-2 session times out, we're not going to write that output because the session just stopped. We only will write when we get to the end of the session via a fin or the end of a job. So if you have people that just kind of sit on their screen and let it time out, then you're probably not going to get some information from that. Refer to the IBI focus overview and operating environment for additional information. There's a whole chapter on FOCLog. We have a full menuing system, which you can do your own reporting on, and I think I have some time. Yeah. And I'll show you what the menuing system looks like. But the main thing is I want to make sure you have it, you installed it, and then you can send us what you need to send us. Now, it is helpful if you could share your FOCLog information with us. So I said there's required reporting, but not everybody, I believe, is required. So if you can share your information, it helps us to see how you're using the product, like what adapters you're using. Are you creating lots of hold files? And that way we can then take that information and make sure that we're giving you everything you need to do your job. I think that's it. Yes. All right, so let me share my other screen. So here I am in focus in a focus session. And I'm going to execute FL menu. Tim, is JCL 4X9 available for us now? I know you were working on it. It is, but unless you ask for it specifically, I think you guys have an open case. So I will update it I will send it to you through the open case. But any new requests for license keys will get it. Or if you just want it and haven't gotten it yet, we can provide that for you also. All right, so I executed FL menu. Here's the menu system. We have the different components of utilization. It's grouped by user, file, procedure, usage, custom. For user, let's do total focus users. So I'll do the 105 report. You have some parameters you can put in. I'm just going to run with the defaults. And it says in June, I had one active user that ran 106 jobs. July had 2 active users. And I believe those active users at this particular level are distinct users. My data isn't very robust, so when we look at files used, I don't think we're going to see that much as far as differences. I think all my stuff is done with car. Oh no, so I got an FMI, and it shows you the suffix of the files that were being accessed. So I know I was using one of our FMI files, a focus file, and I'm not sure what that enfoc is. If you want to look for a particular user, we can do that too. So now I can see all of the files that I created. Where it has car, focus, and other over here, then that means that I used the car file and it was probably a joining effect, and that's where the other file is coming into play. Procedures. Most frequently run commands. Let's see what we get here. So every time you start focus, you run an $$prof. So that's what those are. I think all the things I ran are in stream, so there is technically no procedure name for them. Let's look at usage. Let's look at all LPARs running focus. I should only have one. Yep, TIB03. Output formats used by reports. Let's look at that one. I think all my stuff went to the screen. Yeah, so I got mostly to the screen and then a hold file. So this is the reporting. Again, this is all documented in the overview and operating systems, or when you get the new license package and you get the FOCLOG files, there'll be a PDF that is basically just that one chapter extracted out. So any questions? No, you were looking at the code for existing FOCLOG reports because they did not appear to be correct. Are you looking at the... So yeah, we're evaluating the output of the reports because a lot of the reports create a hold file, and then some of the other reports are generated from the output of the hold file. So I just need to go through and make sure that that flow is all working. So what Tim's talking about is we were working on this, and some of the reports, when we looked at the code, reference fields that we weren't seeing when we ran the output, which was a little strange. So that's what I'm going to be reviewing, just to make sure that everything is what we're expecting it to be. So yes, Tim, I'm looking, but I haven't looked yet. All right, any other questions? All right, I want to thank everyone for coming. Oh, you're welcome, Tim. Glad you could make it. I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you next month. And I guess we're out. Remember to fill out your evaluations and comments, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a great Friday.